we're in this mess because we were unfaithful. And I imagine that gets some people thinking, that's a fascinating system. And they talk about the law. They talk about the logic of the law, the beauty of the law, the Psalms and the prophets. And I imagine that there were a lot of proselytes to Judaism there in the exile. And these are some of the people who come back, who can't trace their lineage back as the rest of the Jews could, but non-Jewish converts to Judaism. Which kind of goes to show that God can extend his kingdom, spread his gospel, spread his truth, even if that means putting us in very difficult situations and circumstances to accomplish that. I suggest to you that that's exactly what happened here. He lists the animals that returned with them in verses 66 and 67. And then in verse 68, we have a very fascinating dynamic, something very important happening. In fact, we have, I wrote some of this on your notes for you, point number 3. In verse 68, in fact, let me read verses 68 and through 70. Some of the heads of the fathers' households, when they had arrived at the house of the Lord, which is in Jerusalem, offered willingly for the house of God to restore it on its foundations. Verse 69, according to their ability, they gave to the treasury for the work 61,000 gold drachmas and 5,000 silver minas and 100 priestly garments. Verse 70, now the priests and the Levites, some of the people, the singers, the gatekeepers, all these people that came back from the temple servants lived in their cities, and all Israel in their cities. So what's happening here? Verse 68, I just write this out for you. Ezra notes an attitude of giving and generosity of the returnees. Okay, I don't know what the returnees saw when they came back. I suspect they saw a lot of desolation. I suspect there was joy mixed with some depression, some, kind of a fixer-upper. I imagine there was a lot of concern about how are we going to be able to recapture our society? How are we going to pull this off? And yet, as we saw in chapter 1, they had received a tremendous amount of financial support, both from Cyrus himself and also from the willingness of the people that they were living with. Again, people who I think were sympathetic to their religion, to their God, and decided to contribute to help them in this effort. And therefore, they respond with generosity and an attitude of giving. There was an attitude of giving and generosity of the returnees. And this word is fascinating. The word to offer willingly is the word nadab, which usually means to incite or to force someone or to compel someone. You think, wow, that really doesn't sound like volunteerism to me if they're using the word nadab. Well, what's key here is that it's using it in a certain stem, what they call in Hebrew grammar a hith-to-el stem, which is a reflexive meaning. I do this for myself, or I do this to myself. So he uses this word to force, but he uses a specific stem, which means I force myself, I impel myself, I compel myself to do something, which means I volunteer. I do something willingly. I'm not forced by anyone else to do this. I do this willingly. And there's an internal compulsion from our love for God, from our desire to see God's priorities happen, from a desire to see God's work happen here among his community. There is we impel ourselves, we compel ourselves to serve him, to worship him, to provide generously for the work that God is doing in our midst. Interestingly enough, reading further here in our note number 3, the precise form of this word, it says hifnadabu, basically the word, is used 3 times in Chronicles and Ezra of freely giving to the temple building efforts. So whenever this idea of they compel themselves, they volunteer, it is always used in relationship to the people's volunteering to help with the temple construction. And you know what? It's unfortunate. I'm getting a little ahead of myself in the notes here, but that's okay. It's unfortunate that what we take from the Old Testament, the precedent we take from the Old Testament is the idea of a tithe. Now, if you like a tithe, you think, man, a tenth of what comes in, it's probably not a bad guideline. If you kind of like the numbers, if that's what you want, that's okay. But there are other precedents for giving from the Old Testament, like this one. Freely. A free will offering, in a sense that I want to give in the way that the Lord has blessed me, in the way that I am able. I want to give because I love what the Lord is doing, because I love the Lord, I love the Lord's people, I love seeing the Lord work in His community. And we spend so much time focusing on the tithe, I don't know if we focus enough on the free will giving. And it's too bad that we don't utilize precedents like this from the Old Testament rather than the tithe giving. Though I think this church, I think there's a better balance of that here than other places I've been. So that's good, and that's the way it should be. Is it okay if I give 11%? Yeah. Eddie, is that okay? I think it's okay. But we'll take 11%. You know what? I don't think we want to slip into some legalistic pattern of how we're doing things. I think we want to give generously. And it's exciting to see people do that. It's exciting to participate in that. And I'll be honest with you, I like this idea of I compel myself, because sometimes, you're just all enthusiastic and you're excited and you sit down and you go to write that check and you think, whoa. And you do have to compel yourself to do what you genuinely want to do because you love the Lord, because you know it's right. And you write that thing out and you send it in, and it's wonderful. I don't have an agenda with that. If I have an agenda at all, it's that I like how this church especially has gotten away from the tithe idea. They don't beat us over the head with the tithe. Free will offering. I think that's what God loves a cheerful giver. And I think God will bless that exceptionally. And I'm excited about that tone that you all have set. He notes in verse 70, and we'll kind of finish with this. He notes in verse 70 that the returnees did some basic settling into their own towns before turning their attention to big priorities. Verse 70, now the priests and the Levites and the people, the singers, the gatekeepers, the temple servants lived in their cities, and all Israel in their cities. So they go back and they start in their cities. They have a big priority. Okay, they've got to rebuild the altar, they've got to rebuild the temple, they've got to lay the foundation. That is a huge priority. In fact, that is the very reason why they have returned. But you know what? They do kind of give some attention to the real urgent matters. They build themselves homes. They probably prepare crops. The big priorities they're going to get to. In fact, we're going to jump into the big priorities next chapter. We're going to see some wonderful beginnings, even small victories of their new beginning. But they go home, they settle their area, they probably plant crops, they probably rebuild their houses, and then they go back to the big priorities. Now, if their personal issues begin to interfere with their ability to focus on big priorities, that's when the post-exilic community is going to start to run into some problems. We're going to get to that as we go through Ezra, where they focus on the big priorities, and then they kind of back off the big priorities and go back to their own personal issues. It's a matter of balancing these priorities. And here in Ezra chapter 2, and then as we see in Ezra chapter 3, they're getting this right. After a while, they start missing that boat. So here's the big point. Ministry takes people. It takes lots of people. It took 42,000 people. It took 4,000 priests, Levites, temple servants. It took people to build. It took people to help fund. It took people to rebuild civilization and society for the Jewish nation, returning to their homeland. The church needs you. Because ministry takes people. It takes lots of people. There's not a lot of room for people sitting on the sidelines. And, there's a lot of you that are very involved. And I'm excited about that. It's thrilling to see your involvement. And I don't know how involved some of the rest of you are. I just encourage you. You're going to find joy and satisfaction by getting involved. It's encouraging. That's how you see God working in the community, by getting involved in a variety of ways. We have the the volunteer sheets out on the sign-ups bulletin board over there. Go over and look at those. There's places to help with kids, with nursery, with kitchen, with bringing food, with helping clean the facilities. There's a lot of different wonderful ways in which you can help. And that also alleviates the burden off of some who are really, really doing a lot. And that would be helpful. And also just remember that this is a great precedent for New Testament giving. Not just the tithe, but the free will offering. And I hope that's your mentality as you come to this. Not just, all right, I got to give my 10%. But a real desire to give from your heart. Ministry takes people, ministry takes effort, ministry takes energy, and all of those things are provided by God and supplied by God. And we can see God working through his people when we step up to the plate and decide to do the things that God has put before us. So, Derek, why don't you close with a song?